What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Fellow Show. My name's Kyle. Tonight, August 20th, it's about 5 p.m. Central Time. We're going to go over my late round sleepers to target in fantasy football. This is the third part of my redraft guide series. The first part of the redraft guide, we kind of talked about how to build your foundation. And the main idea was to try and draft a top 5 player at each position that's going to set you up and help you throughout the rest of the draft. Part 2 was kind of the mid-round players to target. That's rounds 5 through 10. And that's really where a lot of the heavy lifting is done in your draft. And that's probably the rounds that are going to make or break your fantasy season. But in this one, we're looking at the guys that are going, rounds 11 to 16 in your typical 10 to 12 man drafts. I'm going to open up the screen share here, and this is behind the membership paywalls, but I'm gonna be cool and I'm gonna share it with you guys. Maybe not the whole thing, but we'll kind of just paraphrase it and kind of go through it a little bit. But if you guys are not a part of the Fantasy Fellowship member yet, we're doing a $7 August promotion, which gets you access to all my projection cheat sheets, the depth chart cheat sheet here. You can download the whole projections document and do your own things with it too. Tons of projections, rankings. And then here's the redraft guide. We've been talking about the 3-part series. A lot more in here, but for $7, you guys can check it out. And then let's get into it. So rounds 11, and I'm using ESPN's ADP. So rounds 11 through 16, and we'll just kind of do it position by position. Now, I don't love waiting for a late round QB in my 1 QB leagues. These guys are all really solid QB2 options, but you have Tua, Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, Deshaun Watson, Matthew Stafford, Baker Mayfield. JJ McCarthy was there when I published the ADP. You're going to see Sam Darnold up there probably next week, but Bo Nix and Bryce Young. I don't think any of these guys have top 5 upside at the position. So you don't want to be waiting for one of these guys to be your QB1. I do think, though, that you could, say you missed the boat on the top 14 quarterbacks, you can make a duo of these guys work, whether it's Tua and Goff or Lawrence and Deshaun Watson. I think there's a lot of opportunity for these guys. And, the average pick, we're talking 136 for Tua. He's going in the 12th, 13th round. So he's kind of a free square. And what I do like about this list, too, is if you wanted to wait for Anthony Richardson or Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams, you could totally tack on one of these trusted veterans as your QB2 and just kind of hedge your bet with one of those more riskier first quarterbacks. So the guys that I highlighted here, these are the guys that I like. They all offer some really nice things. Tua offers, a high upside throwing game. Jared Goff, same thing. Trevor Lawrence actually offers a high throwing floor and some rushing upside. He usually runs for 300 to 400 yards, and he does have the opportunity to run for some touchdowns. And then Deshaun Watson there, he's still a good running quarterback, and I think they're trying to lean into the passing game a little bit more this year. So I'm actually opportunistic for Deshaun Watson to be a decent fantasy option. But kind of like I note here, I don't believe any of the QBs in this list have top 5 potential. But hey, if you wanted to load up your team, the first 12 rounds, you just load up your team with studs and say, I'm going to draft Tua and Trevor Lawrence in 13th and 14th round and just have my QB matchups. I think that can work. I honestly think that can work in a 12-man league. And I kind of note that. Guys that I'm just out on, I'm not drafting Kirk Cousins. I think he can be a really nice volume passer, but, Achilles injury, he offers no rushing upside. Same thing with Jared Goff. He doesn't offer a lot of rushing upside either, almost little to none. But with Kirk Cousins, we know he's not running the ball. They have a really good running back system, and I think they're going to throw the ball fine. But I'm going to lean Jared. If I have to choose one of those guys, I'll go Jared Goff over Cousins. And then I'm just out on Justin Herbert. I don't think you want him in a 1 QB league. The volume's not going to be there. His passing efficiency probably goes up this year, but we all kind of know what he's working with at receiver. Doesn't have much of a running backfield either. Just slightly nervous on the Chargers offense. I think it could be a good, way to win some games, but for fantasy, I don't see it for Herbert. He's also coming off the plantar fascia. I don't see the upside there. So the 1 QB league, we're out. These are probably waiver wire quarterbacks for you, but Stafford, Baker, that would be Sam Darnold, Bo Nix, and Bryce Young. So to recap quarterback, there's really not a lot of late round sleepers that we like here. For super flex leagues though, I'm in on Kirk, I'm in on Herbert, I think as a low end QB2. In a super flex league, if you just say, I'm gonna wait and grab three of these guys. I think that could totally work. I think Tua, Goff, and say Bo Nix could work. Or say you grab a top five option and maybe it's C.J. Stroud, and then you just say I'm gonna get Watson and Bryce Young. I think that's a good way to look at it. So this is a good QB2 list for you in Superflex leagues. Yeah, to recap, hopefully you already grabbed your QB1. If not, draft two of Lawrence, Watson, Goff, and Tua. All right, the running back group is probably the most exciting list of players here in rounds 11 to 16. We're just going to kind of go off the top, and I'll just give you guys the quick spark notes here as to what I'm thinking. Blake Corum, I think, is just purely a handcuff this year. He's not going to push for playing time as long as Kyren Williams is healthy. We do know that Kyren Williams sometimes gets dinged up, so there could present some time where you're starting Blake Corum. But to me, he's purely a handcuff in the mold of a Zach Charbonnet type. And a guy that could get some base work, whether it's 5 to 6 carries a game, maybe something like that in a target or two, but he's just not startable unless Kyren Williams is out. So I'm fine putting Corum on my bench, but just note that he is a handcuff and won't be put up into your lineup until Kyren gets hurt, if and when he gets hurt. Now, Jerome Ford. I know a lot of people like Jerome Ford, but if you like Jerome Ford and you want him on your team, and you're drafting him on your bench for week one, it's not helping you and not helping you at all. We do expect Nick Chubb to return. I'm thinking he's on the PUP list, though. Assume the first 4 games he's out. And maybe week 5, week 6, you can expect Nick Chubb back in the lineup and to start earning some work. But if you have Jerome Ford on your team, like, he should be in your RB2 spot or your flex spot. So I don't take a lot of Jerome Ford unless I need to. If I waited for my RB2 and I'm kind of just putting together a room, Jerome Ford can be a part of that room. But if you already have your top 2 or 3 running backs, Jerome Ford's not really doing much for you, because early in the year, you're going to be starting those guys ahead of Jerome Ford. And honestly, I'm a little bit nervous about Jerome Ford week 1 because they're going to use Deonta Foreman. We saw Foreman look good in the preseason, get a goal line touchdown. They like Pierre Strong, and I think Nyheim Hines might make the team because we expect Nick Chubb to be out. So I'm kind of iffy on Jerome Ford. I did highlight him because I think he's a good 0 RB guy. Like, if you say you get your hero running back or whatever, say it's Bijan, and you don't draft another running back until the 12th round, it could be Jerome Ford as your RB2 week 1. I think that can pay off. Gus Edwards. A good bet to lead the Chargers in rushing attempts this year. I'm not sure if he's going to be their best receiving back, but he's Gus Edwards. We know what he is. He's a guy that can be the banger, be the goal line back in between the tackles, that kind of stuff. But I think he's just kind of like a standard to half PPR play. I don't know if I want him in a full PPR, but if he does fall into the end zone 8 to 9, 10 times, I wouldn't be surprised. I think he's nice as an option, number 4 on your bench. Hopefully he's not your starting RB2. He could be your RB2 week 1, but honestly, we need to see the Chargers before I really start anything, because I don't know how the backfield's going to shake out. So I like him on my bench as my 2 or as my 3 or 4 running back. Trey Benson, we need to clearly establish that he is a handcuff this season. As long as James Conner is healthy, Trey Benson's not going to get any usable work. And kind of like Blake Corum, I think, you're going to see Trey Benson mixed in every now and then, but as long as James Conner's healthy, Trey Benson will not be in our fantasy lineups. And then even if Conner's out, I think Benson's going to lead the team in carries, but they're going to mix in some passing down backs and some other 2-minute drill type stuff, which could kind of lower his ceiling. So I don't necessarily think Benson's like a league winning handcuff, because I don't see him getting the full James Conner 3-down treatment. So I like Benson. You can put him on your bench, but he's just not a guy that I click on a lot down here. Chase Brown, I don't know why I don't have him highlighted, but he is one of the better picks you can make on this list, especially the guys that we've talked about so far. I think he's got a chance to lead the Bengals in rushing attempts. I do think he's going to lead the Bengals in running back targets and receptions. And you're attaching yourself to the Cincinnati Bengals offense, which is pretty good. He's your home run hitter. He's the guy that can make a 5-yard play, a 40-yard touchdown. So I think he's more explosive than Zach Moss, and he's been getting a lot of opportunities to run with the 1. So it's going to be kind of a duo to start the year. But man, put Chase Brown on your bench. Let's see how week 1 shakes out. Maybe we do have the starting running back for the Bengals. And what I do like about him versus a guy like Benson or Blake Corum or Jerome Ford is Chase Brown is going to have a role with the offense every week. We don't know how great that is, but, Jaylen Warren is a guy that has a role in the offense, and that's pretty usable for fantasy. I think Chase Brown could be a version of Jaylen Warren for the Bengals this year. And if Moss gets hurt, like, oh man, we got something pretty sweet there. Zach Charbonnet, I'm kind of viewing similarly to Blake Corum and Trey Benson. Like, we're not starting Charbonnet ever unless Kenneth Walker misses time. So he's a pure handcuff to me. J.K. Dobbins, man, I just don't like clicking on guys coming off an Achilles injury. Maybe he is better than Gus Edwards this year, though. I think you have to think back to the Ravens backfield. Dobbins was always ahead of Edwards on the depth chart, so maybe, just maybe, like, Dobbins is the one running back to kind of buck the Achilles injury. But take that for what it's worth. He's a guy that is fine on your bench and redraft as one of your last picks, because you can always move on from him if he's not good or if he gets hurt again. So I'm kind of interested in Dobbins, but Tyler Algier, I'm putting him kind of in the Chase Brown category, where he's a part of the offense. It sounds like they want to get him, 8 to 12 carries per game, and still Bijan's going to get his 16 to 20 carries per game. But I think Algier is a guy that offers handcuff upside for sure if Bijan goes down, but he's got a role in the offense that, if I need to pull Algier out of my butt for a week, and I can maybe get 40, 50 yards and a catch or two and a shot at a touchdown, I think that's likely for Algier. So I like putting him on my bench as a handcuff with some high weekly upside. Kendre Miller, we're just not drafting him at this point. The hamstring injuries and just the coach speak there is not good. I've removed him from my thought process in my board. I'm rooting for him, but it sounds like a wasted bench spot potentially. I am drafting Ty Chandler a ton because he, kind of like Chase Brown and Algier, he's got a role in the offense. They're not giving AJ or Aaron Jones all of the work there. I think it's going to be kind of like a 60-40 split. And if Aaron Jones misses time, you got a starter here. So I am a big fan of Ty Chandler. Marshawn Lloyd, it's looking more and more like a redshirt rookie season for him, as we're seeing A.J. Dillon and Emmanuel Wilson kind of looking good in preseason and usage. And Lloyd just can't stay healthy. So I don't know what we're getting in Lloyd. We'll talk about the running backs that I'm taking ahead of him, but there's a lot of guys underneath here that I'm taking ahead of Marshawn Lloyd. Antonio Gibson's fine. We know what Gibson is. He is he's similar to, a Ty Chandler, a guy that can be involved in some base work in the 2-minute offense and the third down passing work. If anything happens to Ramondre, you might have something there. So I don't mind putting Gibson on the bench. They're going to be trailing a lot of games, so you might see a lot of third down and 2-minute work. Rico Dowdle, though, is one of the best picks that I think you can make down here, because there's a chance he might just be better than Ezekiel Elliott at this point of his career. Dowdle he's a guy that does have a role in the offense. He's got a base role that's going to remain. Last year, he was the clear RB2 behind Pollard and got a lot of work. And who knows, if they keep him in that role, he still has value. But if that role grows and Ezekiel Elliott loses work, Dowdle could be the starting Dallas Cowboys running back. So I love taking Dowdle here. I do like taking Chuba Hubbard, and I think what's different about Chuba versus Jerome Ford, they're both going to be starting for the first 3 to 4 games, because we expect Jonathan Brooks to be on PUP. And when they bring Jonathan Brooks back, what's that workload going to be? I still think Chuba's going to be involved in the offense, just like Jerome Ford is. So I'm kind of viewing, Jerome Ford and Chuba Hubbard as kind of the same player, but Jerome Ford costs pick 135 and Chuba's down here at 165. So I find myself clicking on Chuba a lot more, and he could be your starting running back too for the first month of football. But I think Chuba is the same play as Jerome Ford, just 3 rounds cheaper. So I like Chuba on my bench. And hey, if Jonathan Brooks gets re-injured, he just doesn't look good enough, and they don't want to bring him up to pace, I think you could get some role play out of Chuba. Julian McLaughlin is nice. I think he's kind of like a version of Antonio Gibson, a guy that's going to get some carries and 6 to 8 carries maybe in a game. Kind of like Antonio Gibson for me. Jalen Wright is a rookie that I want in all my redraft benches. And we know Raheem Mostert's up there in age, and he's kind of been injury prone throughout his career. We've seen Devon Achane miss time last year. All it takes is one of those guys to miss a game, and Jalen Wright's going to get some opportunity. So just be patient. I think Jalen Wright is the rookie running back you want to stash at the end of your benches this year. Don't draft Elijah Mitchell. It sounds like Jordan Mason has hopped him. A.J. Dillon, I think, is the running back 2 for Green Bay, just a handcuff option. And then Dylan Lobby here, I don't think he's draftable. He's going to be competing for third down work with Alexander Madison. But there you have it. A lot of thoughts on running backs. And I did write up a bunch of this stuff here, but it's all there for you guys. You guys can check it out. Receivers, we'll go a little bit quickly with this one. I think Jameson Williams is the guy that we're all expecting to take a step forward this year, but I think he's going to be continuing to be boom bust. I don't know if we're ever going to feel comfortable with him as our wide receiver 3 flex. And honestly, I like guys other players in his range. He's going in the 10th, 11th round. I usually click on other running backs or things like that in that range. If you want a receiver here, though, just reach for some of these guys like Brian Thomas. Man, oh my God, he is an exciting rookie here that we'll talk about in a second. But Williams, I'm kind of fine with on the end of my bench as my number 5 receiver. I don't want him to be my 4th, though, because that would mean he's the first guy up if I need somebody. He's just more of a depth piece that I'm taking a shot on that could be, a former first-round pick finally looking like it. So I'm nervous on Williams, but his best case scenario is the number 3 target in the Lions offense, and he's probably honestly the number 4 after Jahmyr Gibbs. So I'm lukewarm on Williams. Lockett, just an older player that I don't really care for. I'd rather take my shots on DK Metcalf or JSN. Lockett, he doesn't. I'd rather swing for upside plays here. Why take a 30 whatever year old Tyler Lockett when I could grab the first round pick here by the Jags, Brian Thomas Jr., who's going to be out running a lot of routes and catching some deep balls from Trevor Lawrence. So Thomas is a rookie receiver that I covet a lot. I think you want to try and get a rookie receiver in your drafts this year, and Thomas is just too cheap in your home leagues. We're talking round 11, 12. I'm willing to take Brian Thomas Jr. ahead of Jameson Williams. Basically at this price, I'll take Brian Thomas straight up. Mike Williams, it sounds like he's going to be at practice next week, which is exciting. I don't mind Mike Williams, man. I think he's the number 2 receiver for the Jets. We know he's good. Like, he's coming off a bad knee injury, but I think if you want to stash somebody at this point, around 12, 13, I'm okay with Mike Williams. It's not a guy that I'm super gung-ho about. Jerry Jeudy, I'm kind of okay with too. I think Deshaun Watson and Jameis Winston are a nice QB room that could float a second, third receiving option here, because we think it's Cooper and then Njoku. But Jerry Jeudy could be a nice wide receiver 3 option for you. I'd rather Jerry Jeudy on my team than Jameson Williams. I think we've at least seen more more enough from Jeudy than Jameson Williams. So I'll take Jeudy, in the 12th round as my wide receiver 5. I like Curtis Samuel a lot. He's dealing with a turf toe injury. His week 1 is up in the air, but I'm taking Curtis Samuel here, who I think is going to be the leading Bills receiver for fantasy. Jacoby Myers, just kind of a number 2, 3 target for the Gardner Minshew offense. Whatever. It's just a bench piece for depth. I think Darnell Mooney is a guy that I want to highlight, though, because he's going to be the clear number 3 target for the Falcons, and he could offer some nice flex appeal. Same thing with Rashid Shaheed. These guys are kind of big play flex options for you. Adam Thielen, we're just not clicking on him at this point of his career. I do think there's room for Khalil Shakir and Romeo Doubs, though, as your 5th receiver. Khalil Shakir, he could be the wide receiver 1 for the Buffalo Bills. I think there's 3 legit options that could be the guys that you want on your team. And then Romeo Doubs, man, he is the boring Packer receiver that catches touchdowns from Jordan Love. I'll click on that as my wide receiver 5. Pretty much you can start him every week and expect 3 for 50 as a floor, maybe 3 for 40, 7, 8 points in a PPR league. And if he catches the 8, 10 touchdowns that he did last year, he's going to be usable. He's going to be very usable. I don't find myself clicking on Leggett. I think Gabe Davis is interesting. He's going to be a starting receiver for the Jags. But we know his boom bust nature. I think Brandon Cooks is actually a good value this late. I pick 163. He's the number 2 receiver for Dallas. He's going to compete with Jake Ferguson as that number 2, number 3 target for Dak Prescott in an offense that throws the ball over 600 times. So Cooks, veteran player, but he's in an offense that throws the ball a ton. Take some shots on this group of players. Demario Douglas, Adonai Mitchell, Dontavian Wicks, and Josh Palmer. Douglas has the chance to lead the Patriots in receptions and targets this year. Adonai Mitchell is going to get his crack at the wide receiver 2 position week 1 because Josh Downs won't be ready to play. Maybe. We'll see. But Mitchell has the real opportunity to carve out a role right away, and I like that. Dontavian Wicks is just 1 injury away from being a starting receiver in 3 wide receiver sets for Green Bay. We saw the 65-yard touchdown. Dontavian Wicks is really good. We just need to get him on the field. And then Josh Palmer might just be the best Chargers receiver. At pick 169, like these guys are all way too cheap. I think they all offer a lot of upside here. So Palmer, for me, he's going to be the leading snaps and routes guy for the Chargers. Sign me up. I'll take him with my last pick. Beckham, no. Marvin Mims, we're just no. Jalen Polk, the last rookie that I want on my bench here. He's free. Last pick, walk-off pick for your draft. He could be the Patriots wide receiver 1. I'm not opposed to Jahan Dotson, who I think is still a slot receiver for the Commanders. I don't see it happening for Ricky Pearsall. And then just keep an eye on Calvin Austin at some point on your waiver wire. He should be the number 2, number 3 target for the Steelers. Tight ends, I don't think there's any top 5, top 10 I don't think there's any top 5 options here for you, but Dalton Schultz can be safe and steady. I think he's going to get 3-4 catches per game, 30, 50 yards. Not super exciting, but if you wait on tight end, I think Dalton Schultz is a fine option in this group. I'm out on Pat Freiermuth here. You don't want to go into your draft thinking, yeah, I can just grab Pat Freiermuth as my tight end 1. That's not going to work this year, guys. We saw Kyle Pitts last year, tight end 13 in Arthur Smith's offense, and they're just different prospects. And I can't do it with Pat Freiermuth. I'm not going to mess with Arthur Smith and his tight end rotations. The preseason's already, messing around with Pat Freiermuth in 2 and 3 tight end sets. I just don't think you want to deal with this. I think he's a very good prospect tight end, but I don't see it happening here in this offense. And if you're starting Pat Freiermuth week 1, it could pay off, but you're probably going to be frustrated more weeks than not. Cole Kmet, we're done with Cole Kmet this year. They're messing around too much in the preseason here with Shane Waldron going a lot of 2 tight end stuff, and they're playing Gerald Everett over Cole Kmet right now. So yes, you heard that here. Gerald Everett is the starting tight end for the Chicago Bears. I'm out on Kmet. Taysom Hill is the guy that I want on the list. In every league, you should grab Taysom Hill as your tight end too. Even if you have Mark Andrews, grab Taysom Hill. We saw Taysom Hill get a rushing touchdown on Monday night or on Sunday night, and he might just be their number 2 running back that you can play at tight end. He's going to get 4 to 8 carries a game. He's going to run the ball. He's going to catch the ball, and he's probably going to throw the ball at times too. Taysom Hill is my tight end 13. He's the ideal tight end on your bench this year. Conklin could run hot on touchdowns, I think, is the reliable 3rd target in the offense. I think Noah Fant has a chance to shine this year and kind of reshape his career as he's got no more tight end people to compete with for snaps and routes. Hunter Henry could be a leading guy for the offense there in New England with Jacoby Brissett, kind of a dink and dunk security valve. And then maybe for Drake May, he could be an outlet for him. Dawson Knox is going to remain an option in Buffalo. As long as he's healthy, he's going to run a lot of snaps and routes. Luke Musgrave, though, probably the best sleeper down here. I think he is going to be on the field a lot for the Packers, and we like his ability to stretch the field and make some big plays, good after the run. Isaiah Likely is another ideal tight end 2 on your bench. I think he is their 3rd best receiving weapon this year after Mark and Zay Flowers. You could argue with me on Bateman or Aguilar, but I think they want to get Likely involved this year as their number 3 or 4 target. Zach Ertz is the starting Commanders tight end. He's played with Cliff Kingsbury before. We could get a Zach Ertz renaissance this year. If you wait for tight end, you could make Zach Ertz and Taysom Hill work. I think that could be something that you week 1, you're just going to be like, I'm going to take Zach Ertz. He's going to get 5 catches for 52 yards, chance at a touchdown. I can see it. Ben Sinnott should get more work as the year goes on, but it's Zach Ertz to start the year. And then Mike Gesicki. We've seen Bengals tight ends have a lot of success with Joe Burrow in that offense. And Gesicki, by all accounts, it sounds like he is the clear starting tight end there. A lot of slot stuff for him. Opportunity to catch 3, 4, 5 passes a game. And then the ultimate sleeper here is Theo Johnson, the Giants starting tight end. It's the Giants passing offense. You really only want Malik Neighbors from that team. Maybe Singletary could be argued for, but Theo Johnson is the name. No more Dan Bellinger. But there you have it. That is a quick thought on all the late round sleepers to target and to avoid. Let me know if you guys have any questions or thoughts. Check out thefantasyfellowship.com. I want to thank you so much for your time. We'll see you guys at the live stream tonight, or one of the other live streams videos. Thank you. Peace.